Everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to read a fanfic, fan archive of our own, for the Freak Circus. Beyond a game, the Freak Circus. Summary. Life gets harsh all the time, whether it's what's unexpected or not. Choosing comfort to materialistic things is normal. You chose to borrow in sorrow an incomplete visual novel game called The Freak Circus. It was stupid, you knew that. But did you stop? God, no. You couldn't count how many times you replayed it over and over again just to pick the same routes as before. It was pathetic. The comfort that gave you was immense. Nothing could replace the fulfillment it gave you. But soon the hole in your heart started to form again. Oh, how you wished you could, so suddenly be within the game. To start a new life where you wouldn't face your real life struggles ever again. Not to mention, be with the characters you enjoyed immersing yourself in. But it was an unrealistic dream until it wasn't realistic anymore. Chapter 1, A Blessing or a Curse. How could you put this? You were a special person, not recognized for anything particularly special. A nobody. That was who you are. A nobody who worked a mundane office job. Your morning routine consists of waking up, getting ready, go to work, eat, if you were lucky, go home, sleep, and repeat. It wasn't anything fun about your life. Nothing to note down. No stories to share aside from embarrassing moments. You did back in middle or high school. But you couldn't even remember what happened. You just knew it occurred, one way or another. Fate is cruel, so very cruel. Nobody would be satisfied with a life like yours. Heck, you weren't the only one who forced to live like this. You alongside ours were just incredibly unlucky. You weren't known for your smartness, academically at least, or perfect wit. You were just you, a loser with dumb hobbies to keep yourself sane, to prevent a meltdown that could cost you with severe consequences if you act on it. Life had its way on things, cruel methods to be exact. You're just one of the unfortunate ones who got to face its wrath, like a knife stabbing your chest repeatedly, over and over again. You beg for a stop. It doesn't. You wish for something better. It never happens. You hope for anything to get you out of this cycle. It wouldn't happen. Compared to the vast universe, you were just a tiny bug who could be crushed under the visible force. Why would those divine beings who cross over the cosmos think you were worth their time? Whatever, you had to get home from work anyways. You just missed your bed and the comforts of your apartment. Your boots stepped onto the multiple small puddles of water, creating a small splash, clothes soaking to the brim. How could I have forgotten to bring an umbrella? You curse yourself. Normally you would have checked on the daily weather forecast, but you had overslept and it was a rush to get to work this morning. You refused to be late to work yet again. It was the third time this week and your boss had warned you. You needed that job. You couldn't afford to lose it because of your terrible sleep schedule and lack of management of it. Now it's 7 p.m. The sun had went to slumber, and you were stuck in the rain without umbrella or raincoat. You also couldn't afford a taxi or Uber. Not that your workplace was that far away from your apartment, But the main reason was because you needed the money for dinner. You had skipped lunch to do the leftover work you had forgotten to do the day before, and was rushing to get it done before the day ended. And so you were starving. The familiar run-down building came to view, and you let out a sigh of relief. God, I cannot stand being out here for long anymore. You opened the double glass door and was greeted with a friendly face. Your neighbor, an elderly lady named Martha, about in her late 40s. You didn't know much of her, but knew she lived alone and was a kind, hard soul. Helped you during the roughest week of your life, and you are forever grateful. Oh, dear heavens, you're soaked, she exclaimed, looking you up and down, her gaze filled with obvious worry. You only responded with an embarrassed chuckle. It was embarrassing to let someone see you in such a pathetic state. Don't worry about me. I'll quickly dry off back at my apartment. I won't get sick, I promise. You weren't so sure of being sick-free after being in the rain for a good minute, but you could only hope that was sure. Martha was a cunt, but she nodded. Just make sure to warm yourself up. I do not want to be knocking on your door the next morning to take care of you, she remarked. Though her words were supposed to be strict, it was familiar banter between you and the lady. You could only smile and nod briefly. Yes, ma'am, he said, before saying your goodbyes and getting on the elevator. Your shaky fingers pressed onto the cold metal button of the elevator. It took you to your designated floor. As the doors opened, you didn't waste any more time on moving your trembling legs over the left corridor, going to the door labeled 301. You fumbled with your hands, reaching to your pockets before finding the rough metal. Finally using it to unlock the door and let yourself in. The first thing you did was flick the light switch. Letting the light engulf the room entirely. You set your things aside before making your way into your bathroom to wash up. After finishing your daily routine, you didn't hesitate any further to settle down on top of your bed. Your body relaxed, relishing the moment of comfort inside your own space. The moment of realization passed, replaced with a jolt of adrenaline. You rose up from your bed to search for your phone, finding it inside your bag. Luckily it didn't get too soaked. You jumped onto your bed again, tapping instinctively on your screen, only for your eyes to land on the same mask-like icon on the game's tile in the bottom. The freak circus. It didn't matter how much you played the game, memorized the lines. What each decision does, you couldn't keep your hands off it. Every day, when you got the chance, you wished to spin on the game you were staring at in this moment. Without further ado, you press the icon and the screen sent you to a familiar menu screen. Pirate as a mascot. You didn't waste any more time in pressing the play button and began playing as your heart's content. As your mind wanders, thought that didn't synchronize with what you're doing right now. Playing a game that you cherish a lot, you start to think about your real life situation, and the thoughts bring you dread. It was uncommon for you to experience that emotion, dread, helplessness, sadness, and everything negative. You worked overtime, but didn't receive any more with your own hard work. You didn't exactly have a lot of friends or family members that you are still closely in contact with, and you struggle financially, emotionally, with not much to bring you comfort. You had little option, which is why the game brings you solace that you have rarely received in your life, even as a child. You were sure that a lot could relate, but it was embarrassing to admit to others that the source of your happiness was a silly game about excessive yanderes. That isn't even complete yet, though you were working fine with what you have now. You wished you could do more, receive more. You shook your head. You were just tired and not in the right state of mind. Of course, you were going to think of it silly things. After all, how were you able to get more with the little opportunity you have? It was a distant dream that you could only wish and imagine. As the time passed, you were unable to remember how long you have been playing the game. You realize your arms are slightly aching. You check the time, 11:59 p.m., almost midnight. Amused, you couldn't help but laugh. How could you be playing that long and not notice? It was normal, but never failed to get a laugh out of you, even if the real reality, even if the true reality of it was saddening. Your body that was once laying down on your chest and stomach was now laying on your back. Your phone that was still was being kept on one of your hands. You stared onto the ceiling, unmoving. Then you let out a sigh. I should go to bed, you suggested to yourself. You have a long day tomorrow, and the last thing you needed was oversleeping again and possibly angering your boss to the point of firing you. That thought gave you a scare. You were even lucky to find a job. Losing it would mean losing everything. Not bothering to settle yourself more comfortably. Laying on the bed, while the room felt like it was about to freeze, at the same time too lazy to cover yourself with your blanket. Your eyelids were growing increasingly exhausted, too tired for it to keep open, let alone keeping you awake. Your body did the same, relaxing under the solid cushion of your bed. It gave you a sign to just go and fall into a slumber. Before darkness consumed you, your last thoughts were about today's gameplay, even though you went through it about a dozen times, but the game itself never stopped to impress you. Only if you muttered to yourself in an incoherent manner. Indeed, only if you can experience the fantasy of the world of Freak Circus to start anew, where troubles are forgotten, non-existent, a life where you could fully start fresh. It was tempting, but not impossible. I mean, how could that possibly happen? You slowly woken up, the sun shining in your eyes, nearly blinding you to death. Laying out a tired ground, you scoot over to your bedside table. To the clock, check the clock, 8:21 a.m. Your eyes widen, your sleepiness vanished like it was never there. You had overslept again. Before fully processing your waking mind, you split yourself up, receiving a full-blown headache, but it didn't stop you from getting ready as soon as you can. Take a shower, brushing your teeth, dressing yourself in work attire, all done. Do you notice you were forgetting something? That's right, your phone. You looked at your bed, the last thing you had put it, but it was no longer there. You searched frantically for it, till it come abandoned. The time reached 8:49 a.m. You're growing frustrated, in frustration, ultimately deciding it would be better if you just didn't bring your phone today. Better than losing your job. You ran as fast as you could to the elevator, your apartment key dangling in your pocket. It was a surprise that didn't fall out of in the spot. As soon as you stepped outside the glass door, you stopped dead in your tracks. This is my city. And you were right, it wasn't. The bustling city wasn't as bustling as you knew it. Instead, a place with a more quiet atmosphere. There was no tall buildings that blocked the sun, but instead modest stores and stands. Cars passed through, but not too much that it caused massive traffic. You looked around in confusion. Where you, hi? But you didn't do this stuff like that. Never. Was it a dream? Possible, but it felt too realistic to be an illusion. But then again, you pictured yourself. Ouch, yep, definitely real. You jumped through your jumbled thoughts were interrupted when your face was assaulted by a flyer. Well, let out a scrawl before ripping it off. You looked down at the flyer, and your blood ran cold. The circus of horrors. The freak circus. So that was chapter 1 of Beyond the Game. If you like my content, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, comment down below, and liking the video. And I'll see you guys next time. And I will continue doing reading this fanfic for you guys. And I'll put the link in the description and in the pinned comments. I'll see you guys next time.